Are we on officially?
Thank you for tuning in to the Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees July 2021 meeting. If you would like to make a public comment for today's meeting, you can email it to ask@aadl.org. You can leave a comment in the chat on YouTube, or you can call 734-327-4245 and leave your comment there. Comments will be read at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. President Leha, take it away.
Thank you, Eli. We're reconvening after closed session. And have you taken attendance?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. All right. So we have our first item, which is to approve the agenda. And I would like to hear a motion to amend the agenda this evening for a change in what looks like item 11D, rather than vote for closed session on August 23rd, that we would vote to cancel the August 23rd meeting. That's just an amendment to the agenda. Can I have a motion to change the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Molly.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any further discussion about amending the agenda? All right, I believe that we vote on the, do we vote on the amendment or do, yeah, so we vote on the amendment first. And we do that as roll call.
You have to in this environment. Yeah.
Eli?
Okay. All right. Trustee Ekman,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Amendment passes.
Great, thank you. Now I'd like to hear a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Then let's have a vote.
Okay. Trustee Ekman,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Terrific, thank you. Moving on to the next item of business, the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Molly.
Seconded.
Thank you, Anna. Any conversation about the consent agenda? All right. We'll take a vote.
Okay. Trustee Ekman,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha,
Yes.
Trustee Moore. Yes. She says yes. Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Agenda passes.
Great. I wonder if you're on the airline, if we have to have a verbal yes in order to inhabit the exit row. All right, that moves us on to our first round of citizens' comments.
Okay. I have via email 17 comments and one voicemail comment. We'll go through the text comments first, and then I'll read the voicemail comment. Or I will play the voicemail comment, okay? All right. So our first comment is from Audrey DeMarzo and family. Hi, I want to express how much our family has enjoyed the AADL summer game and winter game over the past many years. I love that it encourages not just reading, but exploring Ann Arbor, discovering new ways to use the library and the AADL website, and solving puzzles and games. We're so thankful for all the hard work by everyone who works on the summer game and winter game with its daily badges. We appreciate you all. Audrey DeMarzo and family. Our next comment is from Christina Kerr. The kids and I have done the summer game for years, and all the hard work AADL staff and trustees have put into it during COVID is very much appreciated. The winter game gave us a slice of normal during a very difficult time, and now the summer game is giving us entertainment while some things are still closed. Kids love finding the baby chicken badges and can't wait until the library is open in July. Thank you for all you have done, Christina and kids. And I should note that we've been accepting these since the last board meeting, so some of these arrived before we had opened. Okay, our next comment is from Cindy Gear. I wanted to share my love and appreciation for the libraries in Ann Arbor. I grew up going to the library every week with my grandma, and so it's been great having so many branches to visit as an adult. The last year was hard with being isolated and staying at home. I'm so happy with the decisions the board made to keep the libraries open and loved being able to reserve and pick up books. It is always nice to see a friendly face when you walked into the building too. I'm so excited for the library to open again in July, and I can't wait to get more involved. Thank you for everything, Cindy G. Okay, here's a comment. My kids are asking me every day when we get to go back into a library again, and now we're in countdown mode. I hope you all know how much the community missed being in your buildings. Thank you to the board and staff for keeping our community safe and well-read during the last year. We can't wait to browse the shelves again. Devin, Mark, Rune, Hazel, and Solstice Fredrickson. Okay, here's our next comment. My thanks to the Ann Arbor Public Library for years of support, service, and activities that have kept myself and my kids engaged through summers, through school years, and now through a pandemic as well. The summer game helped my then little ones explore branches we had never visited and gave us activities to fill the long days and extra reasons to read. Now my youngest is learning to drive, and we plan to get driving hours this summer using the map to look for home codes. As always, the library has expanded with us. With gratitude, Susan Eichel. Okay. And here comes our next comment. This is from a library superfan, Evan Max. This is Evan. I have a citizen comment to make. I really love the Saturday show. I love Otto because he does a great job to host the show. And when he trips and his friend, he can do his show. I wonder if Otto could do a show where he visits me and do some questions on a topic. Evan Max. All right. And here's our next comment. Hello, I've already gotten my summer game points for publicly commenting at a board meeting, but I wanted to tell you that I love the roll call parts of your board meetings because of its way in prompting members for votes of calling out trustee fill in the blank for each of you. It just makes me laugh the way you're all trusty, like the way one might rely on one's trusty hammer or one's trusty mechanical pencil or one's trusty walking companion golden retriever, or you tell me. That's all, Lisa Nichols. Thank you, Lisa. All right. Hello, all board members of AADL. I would love to thank for all the efforts taken by the library during COVID, keeping people safe and yet able to use the library. Thank you all for being able to provide us best and large number of books. Thank you, Gayatri. Okay. I have really appreciated how the library has stepped up during COVID, from the YouTube channel to book recommendations. It is such an invaluable research service to the community. Liz K. All right, here's one more. Thank you for shelf service all winter and spring. We have never checked out so many books, nor have we ever had a greater need for library books. AADL came through for us and was a bright spot in a very tough year. Thank you, Jill, Lucas, and Joshua Thatcher. Okay, a few left. Dear AADL Board of Directors, I am an Ann Arborite who has left Michigan after college. Every time I come back home, I am reminded of how nice Ann Arbor is. Everywhere I've lived, I got a library card and went to the local library. However, I have to say that AADL is definitely the best in terms of library services. From the books, the instruments, the tools, to now the games and puzzles to borrow. Just amazing and so enriching. Thank you and everyone at AADL. Best, Jin Wei. Okay. And here's one more. This is my third year participating in the AADL summer game. I am a student at the University of Michigan, and during the summer of 2019, my first summer in Ann Arbor, the summer game encouraged me to explore Ann Arbor more than a whole school year did. Thanks to the accessibility and resources offered by AADL, I've also found a love for reading again. I have a goal of reading 20 books this summer. Many thanks to all the staff members at AADL for all they do. Best, Elizabeth. Okay, we got two more and then the voicemail. Hi there. After 18 years of living in New York, I moved back to Ann Arbor in the middle of the pandemic. Of the things that make me feel like I'm home, my AADL card is top of the list. Summer Game has given me an opportunity to reconnect with all the catalog and our city have to offer. I'm so proud to live in a place that values reading, education, and access. AADL makes it all happen. Thanks for all you do, Jean Hodesh. Okay. And here's one more. Hello, Library Board. This is a joint comment from Thomas and Latitude Brown. We are big fans of the library game, but have settled back into book reading and sharing the games with friends instead of being on top of the leaderboard. However, we really want to own the library cutting board, so we are sending in this very late comment. Thank you for the fun and interesting and exciting badges you make every year, and especially thank you to the crossword maker of this year's winter and summer games. You rival Will Shorts himself. Great job. Warmest regards, Lat and Tom Brown, library superfans. Thank you, Latitude and Tom. All right, let me pull up the one audio comment I've received. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of the director's report just so that I can share the sound. So hang on just a moment. Okay, and here comes the comment.
Hello, this call is in response to the library summer games for the board meetings. I love this time of year. It's always so much fun, and look forward to it every year. Thank you. Bye. Hello, this call is
Whoops.
in response.
Okay. All right. And that is, as of this moment, all the comments we've received. We'll check back at the end of the meeting.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. And I'll make my own citizens comment, which is that I was very happy to be able to go to my trusty local branch, which is Westgate, on Sunday, when my power went out in my house and I had a very urgent project to finish that required the internet. And it was great. That was my first time being back, really, since we officially reopened. So bravo to the staff and bravo to all of you for submitting your comments for the summer game. That moves us on to financial reports with Josie.
Thank you. You will all notice that the financial reports are marked draft on every page. This is common for the June financial reports that are presented in July, because we haven't closed out the books for the past fiscal year. And until we do, and all the invoices, everything that was encumbered has been cleared, we don't give you a final on the end of the year. So it is draft. So you'll see that now. You'll see it in September, which is totally fine. It's just the report that you get now. This is not much different than what you saw at the June board meeting in anticipation at the end of the year, with a fund balance at the end of this year with a little over $2 million, which we anticipated just because of the nature of the year. I'll start on the cash, not including investments, decreased $1.2 million from $7.8 million on the end of May to $6.6 million as of the end of June. Tax receipts, the library received $17,566,695 in tax revenue, which is 102.4% of the budget tax receipts of the $17,214,700. So I'm going to save my voice and not kill everybody's ears with this cold, and just make sure that you if you have questions about any of the financials as they're presented in their draft form for the end of the fiscal year, I'll be glad to answer them rather than go through everything, if that's okay. I'm not trying to skip it. I'm just realizing I've been here all day, working, talking all day. And so it's beginning to go out on me. So are there any questions for me? Anything that shows up looks odd? Okay.
Being okay. Great. Well, that moves us. Thank you, Josie. That moves us on again to you with the
Yep.
director's report.
Right.
More talk.
That's okay. I'm happy. I think if I run out of voice, Eli will pick me up, take care of it for me. Okay. So I want to begin with some information for you that you may have. From 6/22/20 to 7/8/21, our vestibule service, what we were able to accomplish. 350 days, 21,000 patron accounts used, pickup appointments, you should know we have about, I think, and Eli can correct me, 60,000 active library cards around there.
Typically, yes.
Yes.
Although we saw a lot of household use on a single card during
Right.
pickup appointments.
Which makes total sense. So you see the number of pickup appointments, 825,256. The locker pickup appointments, that's really high for locker pickups, and we're really glad about that. The call center service, I think, is important for you to see. 144,676 minutes of talking directly on the phone with patrons who call for assistance. And there's 50,000 something calls. Same thing with text. Shelf service bags. I'm going to run out of voice, Eli. So why don't you finish it for me?
Sure, no problem. So we also had 1,828 printouts requested and about 1,500 shelf service bags. And we told you about our no computer helpline. There were 107 sessions of that during vestibule service. That service is continuing, and we're looking for new ways to adapt it. But what's interesting is that was 29 patrons. So a lot of return business, but also showing that there was not a lot of deep demand for this service across the community. There was a small number of people who really needed it, and we were able to help them. Do you want me to keep going, Josie?
Yeah, go ahead with the
Sure.
numbers.
Okay. So these are just some charts that show you on the same time scale, different Y scales, but you can see the Y scales are labeled because we like to make charts the right way. And the lobby versus locker, you can see how, remember that we were closed for about 3 weeks right before Thanksgiving, about 3.5 weeks when there was the pause. So all locations were closed right before Thanksgiving. So you can see that dip there on the lobby appointments. You can see the dip on the door count. You can also see when we launched shelf service and printout pickup, they both got a lot of people trying them right at the beginning. And then we had a decline as things were quiet and going through the holidays. And then we see what we like to see, where they grew to a new plateau and they stayed very steady. So both those services are continuing, and we're very pleased with the level of usage that both those services have attained over time. So that's those charts. And now we're back to the Black Lives Matter mural dedication from Friday night.
I just want to say how it was a lovely evening. We had great attendance. The artists spoke, and it was so moving and so gratifying for everyone there to know more about them and about the work. I want to thank those of you who were able to attend. The artists were obviously very appreciative of all the support from the library board and staff. And this mural will stay up on Library Lane on the fence for quite a while into the future. And we are very gratified and very pleased to have been able to provide this opportunity to Black artists in our community, but more importantly, to our community, for anyone who's walking around and sees us downtown, what it might mean to them. So thank you all for your support and our effort in this area. Outdoor story times began downtown already, and we had a great crowd, and there's a picture. We'll continue with those at downtown on the pad outside on the north side of the building, and at Westgate under canopies in the plaza at Westgate. We'll do that for the foreseeable future. Pride Month, we had a month of Pride Month and then 30 days of Pride, and we're also looking forward to the August Ann Arbor Pride Month, with other celebrations and events, and Teen Pride Book Talk, which is going on here now, which was something I think we added this year. So I wanted you aware of the library's efforts for acknowledging and celebrating Pride Month. Two times. This one sneaked in. I was a guest on Stateside, I guess a week or so ago now, and talking about our closure during the pandemic, our reasoning, our services, our reopening. And it was a pleasure to speak on Stateside, and I appreciated the opportunity for the library to have that sort of exposure and actually affirmation. I got a lot of feedback from what I said, and it was positive. So The Lego contest entries are still being accepted from July 25th through August 8th. This is one of those major things that we love to do. And it's all online again this year, but did not detract from it last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing the entries, and I'm challenging everyone to outdo yourselves from last year. Here you are. If you are watching this evening, you see the code. I won't read it. That's cheating. This is a summer game update. Why don't you take it, Eli?
Sure thing. Okay, so we just wanted to show up some stats of where we're at right now compared to prior years. So for 2021, we have 6,645 players so far. That includes 1,000 new players who have never played the game before. We're delighted by that. That puts us ahead of the same date in 2020, but behind a normal year, quote unquote, as we would expect. But that's going very well. We are seeing very deep engagement with that, though, with 181,000 badges earned by those 6,600 players, 488,000 codes redeemed, and over 63 million points earned, which you can see is way ahead of where we were last year in 2020. In some cases ahead and in some cases behind what a normal year would look like. But with a lot of statistics, it's going to take us some time to get back to old world numbers. So that's just a quick update on summer game numbers, but we also wanted to show how home codes are going this year, because home codes are exploding. It's going absolutely bonkers. There are so far this year 517 home codes have been created around Ann Arbor. Total for the whole game in 2020, we had 259. So we've already almost doubled the number of, or more than doubled the number of home codes that are out there in the community. It's a super interesting map of where our most intense players are living. And what's also great is the number of home code redemptions there have been. We've already had 4,755 home codes redeemed compared to 5,421 for the entire summer game in 2020. And with us just now halfway through summer game, we're expecting probably 8, 9, 10,000 redemptions of home codes. This is the thing that people are really just loving. They're having so much fun going out and finding. And one thing that is new this year, which you may have heard of, is children creating home codes without their parents' permission. That has been new this year. And many parents have been like, why are there suddenly all these strangers peering in our front window? What did you do, child? And recently we made a change to the home code creation form where you have to check a box that says, I am a grown-up or I asked one before making this home code. So hopefully that will help a little bit. But home codes are going super well. And the shop just opened. So we've got a bunch of new prizes. Everyone, please take a look. There's a lot of terrific things in there, including the return of the infamous library board. If you are new to the board and have not received your library board, please understand you do not need to spend points. When you have been elected to the library board, you will be issued a library board to recognize your board service. So that will be coming when we see you in person.
It's your trusty library board.
Yes.
Those of us who have had multiple terms and might need a refreshed library board.
You may have one.
That we can absolutely manage that.
We
It is,
ate
I
these
will
off
say,
of our library board
remember,
tonight.
My favorite cutting board, and I am picky.
All right, Josie, do you want to take back over from here?
No, go ahead. I'm
Okay.
scratching.
So we just wanted to share some of the glowing response that we received from social media in leading up to opening. Lots of memes shared, lots of great gifts. Everybody was so delighted. It was really just an outpouring of love and appreciation all week. It was really terrific. Here's a couple quick samples. People getting excited about opening, running to the library and for in-person visits. Never mind, that's a scene where someone is running in terror in the movie, but that's okay. He looks like he's running to the library. Here's a great share from Ground Cover News of a wonderful note from one of their vendors about how much they appreciate the library and how much they like going to the library and how much it's relaxing to them. So I was very thankful to our friends at Ground Cover for putting this in their print edition. Here's a few more. Last night I took my almost 3-year-old to the library for the first time since the pandemic. It's one thing that we've been really discovering is fairly large children coming to the library for the very first time because we've been closed for most of their lives. So that's been very exciting. And here's another little kid trying out the wonderful Everbright at the Westgate Library. back at the ADL, and it feels so good. Here's a wonderful photo of Killian discovered the magic of the library today, and it basically melted my heart. Lots of scenes like this from the first week. Scenes like this as well. So glad to have the AADL open again. Back in the AADL with books on the shelves and live bodies behind the desk. Thank you for keeping things going until now, AADL staff. Jenna Bacalor says, I love that my Twitter feed is full of people celebrating the AADL reopening. You know your social media is going well when people are talking about other people's posts. So that's been very delightful. And thank you to both Naomi and Jenna for those great posts. I'm very excited that AADL is back open. I went a little overboard. Speaking as a library professional, that is nothing. That is not very impressive. Try harder. And then going, when your family goes to the opening of the AADL after too many days apart, and they've got a bunch of books there, and then people are sharing their books, including having to get 2 people involved to carry their book bag out of Westgate. And then here's one more post. AADL reopened for in-person browsing today. I've so enjoyed the availability of holds and the curated bags they've put together. And yes, shelf service will be continuing indefinitely. So that is not a pandemic-only service. We will continue to do that for people just as we always had. And browsing the shelves is delightful. We think so too. And then just here's a few other videos, both sharing Molly's wonderful video, giving the experience of the opening moment. And one more thing we wanted to let you know about. We have one more special event coming up in August, and we are doing, in the vein of our very successful Bob Ross paint-alongs, we're going to have Sweat Along with an episode of Sweatin' to the Oldies with Richard Simmons. Please note, Richard Simmons himself will not be in attendance. He will not be able to attend, but we will be watching an episode of Sweating to the Oldies on the street on a giant screen on Library Lane and inviting people to sweat along with Richard. So hoping for good weather for that day. That should be a very fun event just after it gets dark, Friday, August 13th at 9 p.m. And that's it for the slides.
And if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say I was so moved by the dedication on Friday for the Black Lives Matters mural. It was really just amazing to hear the artists in person talking about the thoughts behind the pieces. And I just, it was just fantastic.
Thank you.
I just say, again, congratulations, and kudos to all of you for this transition. In the first phase of hopefully several phases of back to real life interaction with the system, and and also the success with the summer game. And you always know when when kids are really like gaming the system, then they really like the game.
Exactly.
And that's a really fun idea to do Sweatin' to the Oldies. I love Richard Simmons. I had a chance to take class with him before he closed his Beverly Hills studio many years ago. What a fun way to get back together with people in the community.
It's gone very well. The reopening transition has gone very well. So many thanks to everyone on staff who had to work to make that happen as well as it has.
One thing I noticed going through the packet is it looks like there's a lot of hiring happening right now. I'm
Yes.
assuming that's sort of staffing back up for the physical reopening. And I don't know if there's anything else to say about that, but that was something I noticed.
Thank you, Molly, for seeing it. We are staffing back up, and that being able to staff, and with as long as nothing changes in terms of COVID infection in the county, we're hoping to get back to pre-COVID hours. But once we have everyone trained and are able to staff those desks.
And I know that staffing across the board has been hard everywhere. I'm curious how things are going in terms of getting applicants and candidates
For us, it's not been difficult.
Okay.
What we've had to do is hire in batches in order to do right by the people who are training. And so that's what's taking time, but applications are ready. They're readily available, and they're good. We're very pleased with who's wanting to work here, and how they're training. And then some of them who have trained during our closure have handled some situations. And we're like, how long have you worked here? This is fantastic. So that's gratifying too.
Great.
All right. What other comments before we move on? All right, thanks, Josie. Thank you, Eli. That puts us into new business. Andrew is here to talk to us about Ann Arbor 200. Andrew, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to talk about Ann Arbor 200. So here we go. Here we go. Okay. So 2024 will be Ann Arbor's bicentennial year. That's great, but it's 2021, so why are we talking about it? We wanted you to know that we are thinking about it, that we are moving towards it. We wanted you to know what we're working on, and we wanted you to know just that it's being worked on. There is a plan in process to really do the bicentennial as right as AADL feels like they can do it. The thing that's really lucky for us is that there's a roadmap for this, and it was the sesquicentennial back in 1974. So we get to look back at what they did. We get to kind of learn some lessons from them, apart from the lesson of how to spell the word sesquicentennial, which I think I have finally down after making this presentation. The first one is take the opportunity to teach people what you can about the community. They knew that there was going to be interest in the history of the community when the sesquicentennial rolled around. So they decided to write the definitive, well-researched, formal, official history of the city. And they wrote the pictorial history of Ann Arbor. It remains the major core work of Ann Arbor history because they knew people would be listening. They took the opportunity and they did something with it. Include as many voices as you can. This is the Sesquicentennial Journal, which was put out by the Sesquicentennial Commission in partnership with the Ann Arbor News. There were 12 issues published during the year, and they solicited articles from all over the community. Dozens and dozens of people contributed to this publication. It's kind of all over the place, but town's kind of all over the place, right? It's kind of an uneven town. It's a good sort of portrait there. And the important thing is that there's a lot of stories and a lot of perspectives got heard over the course of that. Lesson 3 is that the weird survives. These are 1 ounce silver medallions that were minted. These are little silver bars. This is one of the ways that they paid for the sesquicentennial celebrations. And while we wouldn't mint any silver bars, most likely, the fact is when you come across one of these things these days, it's you say, what a weird little thing. That's really cool. And you don't really forget that that happened. And there's a lesson there. And the last one is try something different. And in this case, it's I Remember When. This was a series of short documentaries, interview-based documentaries. This is the first attempt that I'm aware of to do local history documentary in Ann Arbor, and it was done by the public library. It was sponsored by the public library. The reason this was kind of revolutionary is that they interviewed people. They chose who to interview, which means there's more diversity than you saw in any of the other histories of the city. And because it was on video, you couldn't edit people out. You could edit out certain sections, but if they said the word prejudice was going to make it in there. And that had meaning. That was different from everything else. It just let people speak for themselves. Now, all that said, there was a lot of diversity that was ignored in spite of the admirable attempt of the library. There's, of course, a lot more diversity in town. I mean, there was an active LGBTQ community in 1974, and that didn't make it anywhere into the celebration. There's a lot more diversity that didn't make it into there. There was a lot of ye old Ann Arbor kind of stuff about it. A lot of, fetishization of high wheel bicycles and bustles and carriages and all that kind of thing. There was a very clear desire to satisfy this academic idea of what history should be. And there was a lot of boosterism. There was a lot of this like, Ann Arbor isn't a small town anymore, rah, rah, rah. And because of that, while they touched on some of the less savory aspects of our history, they didn't really want to get into them because they were trying to talk about how great we were. And in 1974, you couldn't talk about how great you are and still talk about how you weren't always great. So, I mean, this was all about how they saw themselves and how they represented themselves, whether they knew how they were representing themselves or not, right? So, what about us? And what we're going to do is Ann Arbor 200. Over the course of 2024, there will be 200 content releases from AADL that explore topics from Ann Arbor's history. And that sounds pretty nebulous, and that's by design, because we're still 3 years out from this project. We are beginning this project. We're hoping to get a lot of feedback from the community. We're hoping to work with a whole bunch of content creators and things like that. So we don't have a concrete idea of what this is because there's a lot of things that it can be. And that's kind of the idea. But I kind of want to dig into what it means just so you have an idea. 200 content releases means that over the course of the year, every week, there's going to be 3 or 4 releases of new things coming from the library that have to do with Ann Arbor history. A release could be a single piece of media, a local history article, or a short documentary, or it could be a set. The next day there could be 12 illustrations of something. Content can mean anything. Content can be articles, documentaries, audio documentaries, illustrations, maps, infographics, comics. We're not putting any boundaries on that, and releases are going to be created. Some of them will be created by us in-house. Some of them we're going to commission work from some local creators, and other things we're hoping to partner with other local organizations and try to create things that way as well. Having 200 releases kind of frees us up in a strange way because we can kind of try whatever we want and not have that thing that we try to take everything over. So we get to do a whole bunch of interesting things, And the last thing I want to talk about as far as what this means is that kind of explore word. And I want to give some examples of things that we have in mind. Explore means more than just educate. In 1974, they were interested in educating people. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to tell you about your town. And that would be straightforward histories, and we will totally have straightforward histories. There are going to be a whole bunch of those things. There are going to be, historical articles on the June 1968 flood and on Mr. Flood's party and on the Rainbow People's Party and on all these other topics around town. Maybe we'll commission a short documentary about the history of redlining in Ann Arbor and the impact it had and how it created the Black community being in, West Side and Carytown. We might create interactive maps to show those demographic shifts. We might colorize some photos from the 19th and early 20th centuries just to give you a different perspective on those things. These aren't things I'm saying we're going to do. These are just, there's a lot of ideas that we have out there, and I want to give you the kinds of directions that we're thinking about, that we're kind of thinking in every direction. We're also thinking about unusual ways to delve into history. One of the things we've talked about doing is commissioning some WPA style travel posters for buildings and things around Ann Arbor that aren't here anymore. Come to Ann Arbor and see the beautiful Masonic Temple, the famed Washtenaw County Courthouse, just to teach people about some of those things, or making baseball cards with for past Ann Arbor mayors with stats of how they voted on things and a little summation of how they did during their term, and you can collect all 24 of them. And then beyond that stuff, hopefully we're also going to get a chance to just kind of play with history and just do some things that are fun that use history as a jumping off point. We could record some songs by some of our prominent Ann Arbor musicians, Iggy Pop and Bob Seger and Andrew W.K., but maybe we have them recorded by a Bavarian style brass marching band, the kind that was popular at the turn of the 19th century in Ann Arbor. Or maybe we partner with the public schools and try to get the students at the schools to write limericks about their school's history. Or maybe we make commercials for 1890s Ann Arbor businesses that look like 1980s television ads. Just something fun and interesting. It might teach people a little something, but hopefully it will be entertaining at the same time. There's a lot of possibilities and I'm not trying to restrict this. If somebody has a great idea for like an interpretive dance about the different subdivisions around town, this is not my thing. I'm there for it. I'm listening, like whatever there is. I also kind of want to talk about what Ann Arbor 200 is not, because it's not an attempt to create a comprehensive, complete history of the city. We're not interested in that. That doesn't need to be done. You can't do that. To even think you can do that is a folly from another time, right? There's too many stories. There's too much here to try to wrap it all up into 200 pieces. It's not beholden to these old ideas of what history is and what it should be about. This isn't just about important, big things. Maybe we make baseball cards about the mayor, but maybe the really, really deep dive, the really researched history is about the punk scene in Ann Arbor, and we really go deep into that in an academic way. It won't be bogged down with boosterism because we don't feel the need to say rah, rah, rah. So hopefully that will allow us to kind of look at things and be willing to be critical. And it will definitely not be a rehash of the histories that have come before. We don't want to rewrite the pictorial history of Ann Arbor. When they wrote that, one of the things they were trying to do was to fix the errors from a book by Stevenson that had been written for the Centennial that they said was full of factual errors. We're not trying to rewrite the history and try to get it all correct, especially at this point. I don't want to talk about how Ann Arbor got its name. That we've talked about that. That's been done. If someone has something interesting, if there's a new perspective, if there's a new way to present it or a new way to look at things like that, we're interested in that. But otherwise, we don't need to rehash the same histories that we already have digitized a million different times, So how are we going to do this year? The timeline is this year, we're going to identify the topics that we want to see covered. We're making a big, long list. Next year, we're going to assemble some advisory group. We'll get together and we'll try to identify how we think some of these topics would best be covered. Some things are going to lend themselves well to a documentary. They belong in a documentary. Some things are going to be better as articles. Some things lend themselves to illustrations. We'll try to work that stuff out. 2023 will be all about creating work and commissioning creators to make work for us. And 2024, we'll see all those releases. The through line through all of this, the thing that goes on already that will never stop going on, is the research that happens at the archives, the digitization of work that will inform all of this and give the basis for all of this work to happen. Why do we think we can do this? Because in 1974, we commissioned some short interview-based documentaries, and that's what the library did. And now we're talking about something that is like just many, many times that. But we've become much more of a home of local history here, and we have a huge number of resources that have been digitized and not digitized. And on top of all of that, we have the whole community. We have organizations we can partner with. We have people that we can interview. There's all kinds of material out there that we can draw from. So we think there's a lot that we can do. We think there's a lot of material out there. And that's kind of what we're asking for right now. This is the time when we're asking the community to start pitching their ideas to us about topics they'd like to hear in the Ann Arbor 200. What are the stories that they like about Ann Arbor? What do they want to hear about Ann Arbor? What are the questions they have about Ann Arbor? What do you love about Ann Arbor? What do you hate about Ann Arbor? What makes Ann Arbor what it is? And how did it get that way? That's kind of what we're looking to hear from people. The history that gets written, the history that gets made, says as much about the people who make that history as it does about the subject of the history. Like we see that with the sesquicentennial. And this is our chance to delve into Ann Arbor's history through the lens of our time, but also to kind of show the people who are looking at Ann Arbor's history at 250 years, what we were and what we valued at 200 years. So I hope that people check out the website just to follow the project and follow along with it as it goes through time. And I hope that people email annarbor200@aadl.org, because that's where they can send all their suggestions for things they would like to hear about. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. I just want to invite people, trustees, to reflect, comment, and think about the idea of what what you might think what you might think is important to represent in a kind of celebration of Ann Arbor 200. And in the context of this meeting or otherwise, or just reactions to Andrew's presentation.
I'll just say I'm super excited about the creative thinking and the thoughtfulness, and the fact that we're planning so early to really tackle this moment as a moment to take that step back and look back. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of see what the ultimate result is, and the approach we're taking. I think one thing, if I was going to suggest a topic, the first thing that jumps to mind for me is wrestling with the idea that 200 years is kind of an arbitrary point in time in terms of thinking about Ann Arbor as the land we occupy and the people living here. The land has been here for a very long time, and people have been living here for longer than 200 years. And so thinking about what that means, and who that's, setting the narrative at that point in time, how does that, what stories can we tell about ourselves from that perspective, thinking about the experiences of Indigenous people who were here before colonization, and acknowledging that. But I think that'd be a great topic. But yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. So thanks.
I would just suggest like the idea of, in terms of thinking about advisory groups, that, as you're building that, really imagining an advisory group that goes beyond the staff into partnership-based work, in potentially, I would even suggest that one or two of us are part of that group, that there's really a sense of like a couple of us from our leadership helping move this idea along, since it's such a big celebration and big moment. I saw Dharma unmuted herself. Toss it over to you.
It was only just to say that I think this is also a very cool idea, and I'm excited about it. I guess it snuck up on me. I didn't think I really realized that this was coming up so quickly. And I also really appreciate the creative approach to looking at things, not through like the traditional kind of telling the same stories, and like the library has done with so many things. It sounds like really encouraging the staff and community to get creative with this. So I love that.
I think also I see this trajectory in watching the library of turning more towards content creation instead of just content acquisition. And so I love that you're using this anniversary as an opportunity to like make that the centerpiece of what you're doing for it. So I see that and think it's awesome and good for you.
Well, thanks, Andrew. Please, keep us posted and come visit again as this is coming together.
Okay. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, we have some other items of discussion, facilities related, and Len is here to talk to us about those items. Welcome, Len.
Thank you. The first item of discussion is to replace the fire panel downtown. The current panel was installed in '91. Typical useful life is probably 10 to 15 years. So it's done its job. We're at 30 years. We looked into replacing it a couple years ago. It was still operating fine in the last year or two. It's just gotten glitchy. We've had a lot of calls from the fire department to show up, and we've never, been able to figure out why they were called, things like that. So really maintenance, it's time to replace it. So this system would be fully addressable. So it would actually notify the fire department of where the issue is within the building. It could do closing announcements, weather announcements. There'd be a new panel at the front door, one at the back door, which we don't have. Be a full mic system. So you'd get horn strobes and sound in every room occupied in the building. So it's a pretty big upgrade. I will say I saw the draft resolution in the board packet. That's for the value of the contract with Vanguard. If we bring it back to the board in September, I would add 15% for just a contingency. I know there's going to be fees associated with permits.
Mhm.
And I also think there might be a need for some drawings to the city, updated drawings of the downtown building to get those permits.
So you're saying there's approximately 94,000 plus 15%.
Yeah, I would say probably 109,000 would give us our 15% to cover any updated drawings plus the permitting fees.
Len, I'm going to ask a really stupid question. What is a fire panel and what does it do?
So no. In any commercial building, there's the actual main panel, and then all your smoke or your heat heads are tied to that panel. When I say addressable, it means that it'll dial out.
Mhm.
So there's a dialer on, even ours is from 91. There's a dialer on there, and it actually makes a phone call out and says there's a problem. That's what notifies the fire department. The newer panels that are addressable, they actually say like room 102, smoke head, whatever the number is. So
Mhm.
the panel itself is just like, it's a control panel, which all the devices run through, whether it be heat, smoke.
Got it.
The fire suppression's not on there, but if the fire suppression were to activate, it would do the same thing. It would call out. It would say, fire suppression system's been energized, and it makes the call out for you.
Got it. And so last replaced in 1991, it's being glitchy. What's the typical lifespan on?
10 to 15 years. So when we looked at this one a couple years ago, I actually had our vendor in and looked at it and talked about getting a replacement cost for it. He said it was, what do you call it? A battleship unit. And as long as you can get the cards that go in for each zone, he's like, it's hard to, they don't break. Well, we're at the point now where those cards aren't really readily available. And again, when you have the fire department coming out multiple times and they can't say why they were there and you can't find anything, and then it's time to, we don't want to waste their time. If they come to one of the buildings, we want it to be for a reason. They could be responding to something else. So,
okay.
One of the calls was from the steam boiler. It was just steam from one of our boilers setting off ahead. And if it wasn't for them arriving at the time they did and see the steam coming out of one of the vents, we would have never known why they were there.
Mm. What questions do people have?
Sounds pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah. I would just flag this as another investment in downtown and our continuing investments in this, structure that we are continuing to make work for us and for the needs of the community. So just important to kind of point that out. All right, and we're not asking for a resolution tonight, but we could, it seems like a very straightforward initiative, so we could ask for the resolution tonight if we wanted to do that. We could amend it.
Does it matter that we're not going to be meeting in August?
Well, we haven't decided that yet, but
If we decide.
If we vote not to meet in August, how does that affect timeline? I guess it doesn't really, because we would maybe look at this in September anyway. I don't know. What do you think, Len?
Well, if you approve it tonight, we'd get started sooner. That's really it. I've talked to the vendor. I let them know what our process is. We'd bring it up for discussion just like this, and that way it gives you all time to think about it. And if you come back with other questions, it is pretty straightforward. It's an older system. This isn't a thing where it's not going to change in 60 days one way or another. It's still going to be a 30-year-old system in that time.
You're asking for 109, is that right?
Yes, 109,000.
Okay. I would, like to see a motion to approve this resolution with an amendment for that amount this evening.
We start moving things now. So
Yeah.
I move that we pass this resolution with an amendment to 109, was it $109,000?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Second,
I'm sorry.
I second.
Thank you, Dharma. Do we need to approve the amendment, Josie, first, or can we just move, or can we can?
Approve the amendment,
Okay.
amendment, and then approve the resolution.
Great. I would like to hear a motion to amend this resolution to authorize $109,000 from the capital fund for the fire panel replacement.
So moved.
Seconded.
Great. And I believe any further discussion on that amendment?
Is 109 enough? Like, is that kind of a specific number? We could make it pat. That's
Well, I put 15% on it's $93,980.37 was the quote. I went to 94,000, added 15%. I feel like that's fair.
I mean, if we have to adjust the amount, we can manage that, at another time. You can come back and update it.
that's fine. That makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So any further discussion on the amendment? All right. Let's vote on the amendment.
Okay. Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Amendment passes.
So the amendment passes, and we've already had a motion to move the resolution. So is there any further discussion of the resolution? Great. All right. Let's vote then.
Okay. Trustee Ackman.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you. Help us upgrade our fire system, Len. All right. Next piece of business.
Is the needlepoint bipolar air purification. So we discussed this, I think it was, I feel like February or March, we talked about air purification in the building, what we were going to do, really COVID related. We had a quick discussion about UV lights and what was available. This is kind of the thing out there that is for commercial buildings that's not UV driven, because of the time that the air would actually pass over UV lights, it's not long enough to kill anything. So the needlepoint system releases negative and positive ions into the air, which will connect, make the particles bigger, and then your filtration system is able to catch them. It's been, a back and forth with our mechanical contractor. I think I mentioned the last time, quite a few schools have put these in. I do know some people that have done it in their residence at home. There's really no consumables with it. You hook it up to power on the supply side, air supply side of the air handler unit, and it just does its thing. You still change filters like you would normally change filters. The reading I've done on it, it's basically like outdoors. It's the same thing we would experience outside with just negative and positive ions, and that's what they do. So this takes any small particulate, and it does address viruses, and that the negative and positive charge and how the virus would react to it. There's a lot there. So this is one I wouldn't say, let's have a discussion tonight, and then let's talk about this one again in September. But
Yeah.
We do have the price for all buildings, excluding the archives. So that's our 5 air handlers downtown, 1 large air handler at each one of the branches, and the 11 rooftop units at Mallett's Creek. And that quote came back at $66,856.
Yeah. So yeah.
This would not need, there would no need for a contingency on this one.
Mhm.
We would use our existing mechanical contractor, and just kind of the time we're in, I think it makes sense. It really is about, healthy buildings and air quality. So, even in a non-COVID year, this seems like something that's we'd want to look at for the amount of people that come through our building.
I would think I'd want to know a little bit more about the technology, in part because I know that there have been another wave of just like articles about some of these technologies like being kind of questionable in terms of their efficacy. And I am also, I think maybe just because it's been a while since we've come around to this topic, and what is in place already in terms of just kind of how we're handling the air in terms of filtration, purification, and if this is necessary. But those are my initial reactions to this. What do others think? Nothing, they're just thinking.
I agree. I'd want to learn a little bit more about the technology. I think for the same reasons Jim outlined. I'd like to spend a little bit of time looking into this and get a little bit more information to make sure that there's a real benefit from sources other than just only the manufacturers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It might be nice to have some sort of presentation that's like almost like a wire cutter review, where it's like, this is why people want these. These are the options. This is why we think this one is the best one.
Yeah.
That's just a thought to address the information need.
No, I had a Zoom meeting with our contractor, the supplier, and one of the engineers. And if we want, I can have not the supplier, but the engineer come to the next board meeting, because this is something we'd want to, I've never installed one of these on an air handler. So everything I was reading about UV and the cubic feet of air, I didn't feel like that was going to be worth it. And then the consumables are, of course, the bulbs that would be replaced all the time. But I think it would be wise to gather all the literature we have and then bring in the engineer on this, not the supplier, and we can have a discussion at the September meeting.
That'd be great.
And did you say this is a newer technology?
Yes, it is. And there are, I think, 3 vendors that are reputable that I kind of did research on. This one is GPS, which was, mostly positive, but when you're searching on the internet, of course, you can find negative reviews as well. So I kind of leaned on to our mechanical contractor with what they've done, where they've installed them, and what the results were. But it's still so new. They could say where they've done them, but it's hard to say what you gain from air quality if you're not testing all the time, which really no one does.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the expected lifespan of these that when you install them? Really,
Probably 20 years is what they're saying. There are some components that might need repair after 5 years, but there's really, it's hooked up to electricity. So it really is, it's just running a negative positive charge. So there really aren't any consumables. It's a box basically, or a bar that runs across the drive side of the supply air. And it's just basically a hole cut into the air handler, and it gets put inside of it. And then that's where it lives. Great. This one, I'll say this, for me with this one, when you talk about making particulates larger so filters can grab them, that's the part that really caught my attention. If that's what this achieves, take viruses out of it, you're still going to get better air quality because your filters are going to pick up more of the particulates.
Mm-hmm.
What about just like this versus just like the air exchange? And I mean, I'm acting like I'm some kind of expert. I'm not.
No,
Really not.
It's the problem with the air exchange. It's not perfect. So I think when we spoke last, that when it was really cold, I had to stop the purges because it was basically turned into coil. So like a car radiator, right? air comes in and it runs across either a heating or a cooling coil, depending on what your building needs. So in the winter, that cold air was hitting that heating coil that's a couple hundred degrees and basically saying it's called freeze stat. It's saying, hey, the air is too cold, I'm shutting down, or it's gonna freeze the coil. So it was shutting down the units. We were able to run it again in the spring, but now we're into this humid weather. We had Pittsfield about a week ago. I had to turn off the 2-hour purge because the humidity in the building was about 73%. You want about 30% with the library because the paper, it can't be too wet, it can't be too dry. So the air purge is great on the perfect day. Cool temps, low humidity, we can use it all year. But we also have economizers in the building, which automatically make that decision. So on a cool day, we're going to bring in fresh air regardless of using the air purge or not. So there's benefit to it, but it's a manual control that we have to decide when we're going to use it or not.
All right.
Well, it sounds like Michigan is not the place to use that technology consistently.
Well, that was the one where I won't say we invented that, but our controls person did not want to do that. We wanted fresh air because we knew fresh air was better than stagnant air, but you still have to condition all that new fresh air. So a mechanical engineer would never allow you to do that. We just did it because we wanted as much fresh air in our buildings as we could get.
Anything else, y'all? All right. For further discussion at our next meeting, which will likely be September. All right. Just find my place here again. Thank you, Len. I think that brings us back to.
Good evening.
Thanks a lot. Voting on canceling the board meeting in August. Can I hear a motion to cancel the board meeting in August?
I move to cancel the board meeting in August.
Thank you, Molly.
And
Sounds like Corinne seconded. Thank you. Discussion.
It's summer. August is a good time to not have a meeting.
It is, and the business is a little bit slower, maybe.
It sounds like there's nothing big that we need to discuss, right?
Not action items, no.
Great. All right. We'll take a vote then.
Okay. Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
yes.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
8-0.
Yeah. The little summer reprieve. And then that takes us back to any remaining citizens' comments.
I've received one more, and I will
great.
read it here real quickly. Hello, thank you again to the team at AADL for the summer game. My family and I love the summer game. It has brought so much joy and fun. It has also encouraged us getting out of the house safely. It brought light during the pandemic, and we were especially thankful for the winter game. Thank you for all you do. Cheers, Elaine Wong.
Thank you, Elaine. All right, everyone. That brings us to the end of the meeting. We'll look forward to seeing you all again in September. And have a good night. We are adjourned.
Thank
I
you
have a
all.
quick question. We
Oh.
can be adjourned, but I have a question.
Yes.
Are we meeting in person in September? And if